Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Sens Nation Podcast. And what a day. We're coming at you on Trade Deadline Day 2025. And a lot of people thought the Sens might be quiet, given their circumstances. Not so much. Josh Norris is no longer an Ottawa Senator. He was traded to Buffalo, Brady Tkachuk, and fighting off the tears as he talks about it. Sens also acquired winger Fabian Zetterlund from the San Jose Sharks. He was the Sharks' top goal scorer last year. We'll have a look at what the new lineup might look like as far as line combinations with all these new bodies in here, and lots of interesting deals around the NHL on Trade Deadline Day. It is Steve along with the coach, Gregg Kennedy. Gregg, how are you today?
I'm good, Steve. What a great day. I really enjoyed today's Trade Deadline Day. It was more quality than quantity. We didn't have the 35 deals or whatever, but I really enjoyed watching the Trade Deadline Day. A lot of sneaky little deals made here and there, and some big ones. Yeah, it's been a long time since we had some big ones like that. I had a great day sitting on my couch. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. It's always a good day when you get to sit on the couch and watch all the cool hockey things. And some years, the trade deadline, it never disappoints. Well, maybe it does sometimes. But today was a pretty good one. I mean, we're going to get into some of the NHL deals like Brad Marchand going to the Florida Panthers. Holy moly. But let's get into the Sens talk right away. And the big one is end of the line for Josh Norris. That's been your guy for a very long time.
Yeah.
I've been with the organization for 7 years, and the Sens traded Norris today. And the gist of it is there's a couple of defensemen going in it as well. Jacob Bernard-Docker goes to Buffalo. Dennis Gilbert, another defenseman, coming back the other way. But it's basically a swap of centers. Underachieving centers as far as expectations regarding their contracts. They're both paid very well. Dylan Cozens, former World Junior star, is now an Ottawa Senator, and Josh Norris is now a Buffalo Sabre. What did you think of the deal?
Well, I mean, you said it. I've been a Josh Norris fan since the day the original trade was made with San Jose. I've always liked the guy and saw him as being a kingpin, a cornerstone of this franchise for many years to come. Unfortunately, with the injuries and with the in and out of the lineup and up and down, and I think the writing's on the wall with the acquisitions that Steve Staios made in the offseason. It shows that he wants to get bigger, stronger, tougher to play against, meaner guys, different body types. And I think that kind of puts some of the writing on the wall for a guy like Josh Norris, who, through no fault of his own, probably has a reputation of being a little soft, injury prone, and good on the Sens for finding a taker. Like, that's a big contract. That's a lot of money with a lot of years left and 3 shoulder surgeries. And you managed to move him and get a real good piece back. Like that's a pretty darn good deal in my books.
I would agree. Without the injury history, I don't think I make the deal.
Exactly.
Like, I love Josh Norris' skating. But at the same time, his that shoulder injury, I don't know if that's affected his one-timer. He got a goal the other night with one, but he wasn't utilizing it as much. To his credit, he was among, I think, he might have been second or third, I think, in hits. So he was trying to be physical. He was trying to get past all the injuries of the past. And for the most part, he did. He only missed 8 games this year. But it's just, the bottom line is, you can talk about every element of this deal. To me, you've got 2 underachieving centers, again, compared to where their contracts are at. Cozens is at $7.1 million, and Norris falls just shy of 8, I think 7.95. And neither player is, living up to those contracts. So if I'm taking on a center that I'm hoping we can get, back to where he was a couple of years ago, I'm going to go with the guy I'm very much more confident that he'll actually be playing. You can't turn around your career and get back to where you were 2-3 years ago if you're not playing. Cozens has missed 6 games in the last 4 years. Norris, on the other hand, has missed about 130. So I know where my money is on that. I think that's why Steve Staios pulled the trigger on this deal. He also gets a little more toughness on that blue line. Jacob Bernard-Docker didn't seem to be part of this organization's plans, and they seem to like, as Travis Green talked about today, they seem to like Gilbert, his stiffness of play. He referenced him as stiffness. I was like, is that a bad skater, stiffness? I don't know. But no, he's a little more physical. He'll fight a little bit. So, and he's also a left shot because right now they're playing two righties in that bottom pairing. So it's possible Gilbert may shove Hamonic out of there.
Yeah, maybe he's a stopgap till Clevin comes back. On the Cozens Norris aspect of it, though, the big three here: bigger, stronger, more durable, and younger. Like that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the fact that he's been playing at Buffalo. Like, he's been playing with stiffs and a team that's a mess and has been for a long time. So I think he gets in here and gets around these other guys, and he's got a relationship with Drake Batherson already. I can see him coming in here and being a player and stepping right in the number 2 center spot and producing like from game 1 tomorrow afternoon. Gilbert, I think, is he's a depth piece, but again, bigger, stronger, meaner. You know, JBD's a big kid, but he's just was never really physical, was never really wouldn't scare anybody. Let's put it that way. Coming off the defending the rush or playing in the corners, not really a physical presence. Gilbert's supposed to be. So that's an upgrade as far as I'm concerned as well on the blue line.
Yeah. Gilbert and Brady Tkachuk got into it earlier this year in a fight.
Yeah.
So we know bygones will be bygones. If you can get over David Perron cross-checking Artem Zub in the head last year, surely they'll get over this. But speaking of Tkachuk, he's a factor in this, in the old intangibles department. Here's a guy that just hasn't had any team success with the Ottawa Senators in his time. He's been here since 2018. Then you factor in, the anthem booing. I don't know where he stands on that exactly. Can't think he loves it. And now you throw in the fact that the guy that Pierre Dorion said was his best friend when the guy arrived here, Josh Norris, now out of town. And you could see, and we'll play back his comments here in a second, it did not sit well with Brady Tkachuk. He's fighting off the tears as the media talks to him today. Will it have any factor? Is that just another factor for him to be considering when his contract expires? He's got 3 years left on it.
I don't think so. Steve Staios didn't make this trade to punish Brady Tkachuk. Steve Staios made this trade to embolden, to give confidence to Brady Tkachuk that we're here trying to help you win, kid. We're doing what we can to make this team better. I make trades to improve the team, not to dissatisfy Brady Tkachuk and trade away his buddy. There would be teams in the past, in the NHL, in the old days, when a guy gets traded and a new guy comes in, if the guy was being let go was a friend of everybody and their buddy, the new guy come in and get the cold shoulder from day one, and people wouldn't even talk to him, treat him like crap, like my best buddy's gone because of you. That's not going to happen here. You saw it in the interview that you're going to play, the little chat with Brady in the dressing room. You saw the switch flick. As he was talking, he was very emotional. His first thoughts were how sad he was to lose his buddy. But then halfway through it, he realizes, but I'm the captain, leader here. We're a good group of guys. We're going to do everything we can to welcome these players. And he almost sort of apologized that his first reaction was on the sad side and not being a little more leadership and captain and professionalism and saying, hey, we're going to welcome these guys in. These new players will be welcomed. Brady will learn to love them. I think Brady understands. The maturity and the leadership of Brady came through in that interview.
Well, you've given most of it away, but
Sorry.
That's okay because no, it's okay. But we're still worth playing, I think, so you get a sense of the emotion involved. He really was fighting back the tears. And so here's Brady Tkachuk in conversation with the media earlier today.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, it sucks. Losing a guy like that, obviously everybody knows how much he means to me. So, yeah, next question.
Have you had a chance to talk to him?
Yeah, no, just spent the last little bit with them and kind of take advantage of every minute the rest of the day.
When did you reflect on just the big picture of things? Like, why is it so emotional? Is it because you played with him for so long?
Yeah, I mean, just just our history. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just gonna keep them short and sweet.
When did you hear this was going to happen?
Yeah, right before practice. I think that's why we went on a little bit later. But yeah, tough practice today.
Travis Green says that of all players, he felt like you probably are the best suited for this, given your history, given that you know that this is part of the game. How do you reflect on that big picture of just the Senators trying to make this team better?
Yeah, it's the unfortunate reality of it being a business. We're getting back, important pieces that are really going to help us, and it sucks. It's part of it, but with Cuzzy and Gilbert, we're going to welcome them with open arms, and I feel bad a little bit that this is the initial reaction, and of course I think they're going to understand why it's a little bit of a whirlwind for me personally, and but with that being said, it's all about being a good captain, being a good teammate, and making sure that they have everything that they need, and have the support right from day one that they're going to be important pieces to our team, and just leave it at that.
Given the emotions, will you lean a little bit more on players like Stevie, and maybe Corey?
Yeah, obviously, losing just not just the player, but the person, really tough. If he was the number one guy that I would go to with anything, not just playing, but just anything outside of hockey, that we were always there for one another, and it's an opportunity for me to rely on other guys and build those relationships, and build them to I think they're all great right now, but to build it to even be even better.
So there's Brady Tkachuk in conversation with the media today, and a very emotional guy. And I certainly didn't mean to imply that he would think the Sens were trying to screw him or something. I think it was just a case of, I think that in his heart of hearts, he disagrees with the move. I think he thinks it's your best friend, so you're always going to think more highly maybe than someone who's more objective looking at things. But I think that I don't think it's. I'm not willing to proclaim right now that Brady Tkachuk in 2 years from now, just over 2 years from now, is when he's eligible to be extended, and that would be July 1st, 2027. And I don't think that day comes and he says, "Yeah, screw you," because of Josh Norris. I do think it is something in there, though. It's another piece on the pile for him to consider, and it does shake up the room a little bit, because that is a very popular player. He's been in the organization for 7 years now, and I'll be interested to see what the reaction of that is. I was glad to see the Zetterlund deal because of that, because without it, you can make a pretty good argument that, the deal with Norris, I think, was a good one when you're thinking long-term and big picture, for the reasons we indicated earlier in the show. But for the here and now, in the short term, for making the playoffs, these next 21 games, these guys are, they finally get a chance to make the playoffs. And usually your headspace is, okay, maybe the GM will, bring in the cavalry and help us out and help us get there. I don't think without the Zetterlund deal that they're feeling that way today. They're just feeling shocked about losing their friend and teammate. And Cozens comes in. I think it's a wash for the here and now, because we know that Norris is playing, and for the next 21 games, he could easily be healthy. So I think that was really important that Zetterlund deal went down, because that does give them a little sense. Okay, we got another guy we can maybe work into our top six. And I think that was absolutely crucial.
That's a really good point, Steve. Pat yourself on the back, my friend. That's a great point, because you hit the nail on the head. Like you could almost argue that if it was just Norris for Cozens and nothing else, the better player, the more offensive player, the better statistics, at least over the last 2 years, because Cozens has dropped, would be Norris. So you, in a sense, you almost lose the deal in that case. But if you got to look at the big picture, and the big picture says that Cozens bigger, stronger, more durable, younger, cheaper, like I outlined earlier, is in the big picture in the long term. That's a really good pickup. This is a guy who can play the playoffs, and you don't have to worry about him. But like you said, what does it do for us today? For now, you basically traded a one for a one. It's a wash. You had Zetterlund, who's sneaky good. Kid's got some offensive upside. Another guy who's kind of languishing, playing on a crappy team, had 24 or 25 goals last year. I think he's at high teens right now, 17, 18 this season. this is a guy who's sneaky good. Like, he's going to slide in. He could play in the top 6. Like, I think he starts out playing with in David Perron's spot. I think Perron drops down to play with Pinto. I think Gregg drops down to center the fourth line with Ostapchuk gone and with Gregor gone and whatever. Gregg drops down to fourth line center. And I think that Zetterlund jumps in there and plays with Batherson and Cozens on your second line, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of combinations that you can talk about because they've got some depth in that top 9 now. Like Ridley Gregg is a fourth liner, and you're about to pay him $3 million next year. There's some tricky decisions to be made here for sure. I'm interested to see what Cozens is. The last 2 years, pretty uninspiring compared to where he was, the year before that. He was a 30-goal scorer and 68 points. And as a junior, if you remember in 2021, not that this matters at this stage of the game, it's all about his NHL numbers, but I bring it up just because that scoring pedigree is in there somewhere. He had something like, I want to say 16 points in 7 games at the World Juniors in 2021. That's the 5th highest total by any Canadian ever. At least it was at the time. And so that combined with his fine season 3 years ago, and he just turned 24 last month. Norris will turn 26 in May. So there's as you mentioned earlier, there's an age disparity there as well. There's a bit of a size disparity, and there's a health disparity in the big way. I'm actually kind of excited to see what Cozens can bring to the table. He and Zetterlund are, good sized bodies, and I think when they leave bad situations like this, not that the Sens have, on this glory run or anything like that, but it's a fun team to be on. They play a fun brand of hockey, and that locker room is really tightly knit. So often you see just a change of address can turn a player around.
Wouldn't it be great to see one or even both of them go on an Anthony Duclair run? Right? Remember the stats he put up after he came over from Columbus that year? Like, there's a potential there for that, and playing them together. And I know there's some chemistry there with Cozens and Batherson played together at the World Championships and developed a friendship with each other. And actually, Batherson was quoted today as saying that Cozens said to him at one point, "If you and I are ever on the same team together, we're going to be best friends." And they've had text messages back and forth already today, 3 or 4 times today. Drake had said. So I think there's some chemistry there for those two. And you put Zetterlund there, little. He's not little, but you put a speedster with some skill on the other side. I really like this second line better than I like Norris, Batherson, Perron at this point in time. I haven't even seen them step on the ice together. But if it's going to be Zetterlund and Cozens and Batherson, I like that threesome better than what was playing as the second line most recently.
Man, you really want to get ahead and talk about those line combinations, don't you? But I want to still get before we get away from the trades.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the actual Zetterlund deal.
Yeah,
and they finally announced it. It took them 3 hours. It was so close to the deadline that they had to, I guess, NHL Trade Deadline day. You got to get in the queue to report it, and so it was almost 3 hours after the 3:00 deadline came and went before the Sens finally announced what Bruce Garriock and Elliot Friedman had put out there earlier in the day. But the deal is you've got Zetterlund, Tristan Robbins, who's a minor league center. He's probably just the moving of a contract because he's not even scoring in the AHL, let alone the NHL, and a 4th rounder. Going to San Jose is Zach Ostapchuk, Noah Gregor, and Ottawa's 2025 second rounder. So I think the big thing for me is the challenge that Steve Staios faced in this trade deadline day was the lack of much in the way of, picks and prospects and the salary cap issue. So I think all in all, he did pretty well. He gives up that second there, and he gives up a pretty nice prospect in Ostapchuk. But I think for what he got back, he did way better than I thought he was going to today.
Yeah, and he got a second out of Buffalo. That to me was the shocker. The Buffalo, you think if you look at that trade just on paper, statistics, career stats, whatever, you'd think, Ottawa would have to give up the second to take a bit more contract to get rid of this guy. I was kind of surprised that Buffalo had to throw in a second. I would have 2 for 2 probably would have done it, but I'd like to think that Steve Staios held out and said, no, I need more. So you're right. Considering all we've talked about was they only had $850,000. They don't have a lot of picks or prospects to move. They did really well. They did very well. They had guys within the bottom six that have been added in the last little while, especially over the past off season, that gave them some pieces that they could move, and did a great job, a really good job. The only thing that could have made it better was if there was a better upgrade on the blue line. I think we're both in agreement there. If there were a slight upgrade on the blue line, would have been nice.
With Zetterlund, he's 25 years of age. If I'm Mike Greer, that seems like exactly the kind of guy. 25 years old, my leading goal scorer last year. Yeah, I've got to give him a raise on his, I think it's 1.4 or 1.8. It's under $2 million. He'll get a healthy raise, being north of 20 goals 2 years in a row. Probably going to be again this year. I think you find room for a guy like that. Not to mention the fact that he fits right in. Like I think about the Senators and their new commitment to size. He's 220 pounds. He's a good skater, really strong on his skates, goes to the front of the net, and has this wicked release. Paul Bissonnette had one of the lines of the day on trade deadline day. He's built like a cigarette machine. I thought that was pretty strong. You'd have to be of a certain vintage to get that reference, old cigarette machines out there. But, I think, you had mentioned where you might slot him. For sure that guy could play in this team's top six.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At worst case scenario, he's a middle six forward in the NHL. And what you traded away were probably 2 bottom six forwards. Like Noah Gregor, love the guy. Skates, works hard, speedster. Zach Stopchuk, sorry, there's a log jam ahead of you. You're not getting ahead of Ridley Gregg. You're not getting ahead of Shane Pinto. You're not getting ahead of Josh Norris, now Dylan Cozens. So where was a Zach Ostapchuk going to play other than a fourth line center role? So the Senators didn't really have to give up a lot, but really what they gave up was 2 projected at best bottom six forwards and acquired a middle six forward. That's a good deal. I don't care why Mike Greer did it. Who cares? Thank you. We'll take him.
Yeah. And you think about what Gregor and Ostapchuk were, I think of words like serviceable and solid. And Ostapchuk still has room to grow. Gregor is what he is, I think. But you can replace those guys. Mm-hmm. Cole Reinhardt, Angus Crookshank. There are guys in the minors who can do what they're doing, and that's flying around and forechecking and never getting on the score sheet. You look at Gregor and Ostapchuk, they both played, each of them, north of 40 games this year with the Ottawa Senators, and they combined for 10 points. 1 at 6, 1 at 4. That's not enough. You got to be a little better than that, I think, even on the fourth line in the NHL, and the Sens will have options there. In fact, they're getting to a stage, though, like we said earlier, they're getting the depth when everybody's healthy here, and I'm worrying less about that today with Josh Norris's exit. One thing I feel good about with Cozens is I feel like he's going to be in the lineup every night again. He's only missed 6 games in the last 4 years total. And so it's going to be hard to shoehorn in these types of players anymore when you've got a guy like Ridley Gregg, who's now projected by both of us here to be down on the fourth line, and which is an odd place to see him when he just got a deal where he's going to make $3 million a year next season. So you still have to find line or room for those grind guys on that line, don't you?
Yeah, but that's not to say that he's going to stay as a fourth liner. Like I'm thinking the third line is back into the lines again. Sorry, Steve. I'm projecting my third line.
Let's go. We'll go to it. We're going to it. We're going to it.
I'm looking at Pinto with Perron and Amadio. Now, Michael Amadio's not going to be here forever. David Perron certainly isn't going to be here forever. So there's room for Noah Gregg to climb up the lineup. I think he projects out to be a middle six, like a third line or second line guy. If he plays a second line, he's probably a winger. If he plays third line, he's probably a centerman. Down the road, I see Ridley Gregg as being a middle six guy, and there'll be a spot there for him. Just not necessarily right now. Not especially on a team that's trying to make a run for a playoff spot. We got slightly better players than you that are going to play above you down these last 20 games.
All right, so we are getting the line combinations now with the new blood in there. And so why don't you, because you've been really anxious, why don't you give me yours and I'll tell you if I have any differences.
Well, I have Stützle between Giroux and Tkachuk, staying the same. Mm-hmm. I have Zetterlund taking Perron's spot. So Zetterlund and Batherson with Cozens in the middle. And then I got a third line of Pinto between Perron and Amadio. And that leaves me with Gregg between Gaudette and Highmore. I think that's everybody, isn't it? Did I miss anyone?
Yeah. Nope, that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what I would do at this stage of the game as well. The only thing I look at is, okay, maybe Perron and Zetterlund switch out.
Yeah.
But no, I think Perron is a better third line guy than Zetterlund would be. And the other conversation I might have would be, because Pinto was already outplaying Norris, in my opinion, that if all things were equal, I might give him first shot at being a second line center. Mm-hmm. But Cozens is coming to town, and your hope in acquiring him, and you're going to have him for a long time now. Like Norris, he's got 5 years left on his contract. A little cheaper, about $800,000 cheaper, but he's going to be here for a long time. So you want to get him at least on the road to being the player he was a couple of years ago, and you're not going to necessarily do that by firing him on the third line. Little more minutes, skill guy with Batherson and Zetterlund, that might get him going. Just a new environment might get him going, but at this stage of the game, that knee-jerk reaction to think, okay, I want to reward Pinto for all he's done. I feel like he's going to be fine wherever you put him, but I want to give Cozens a good long look to prove that he can maybe start making gains and get close to the player he was a couple of years ago when he had over 30 goals and 68 points. And so that's why I agree with you. That's exactly the lineup I would have gone with. But what about on defense? Do you figure Gilbert gets in there and replaces Hamonic at this stage?
Well, this team has been loath to healthy scratch Travis Hamonic. So I don't know. I mean, I thought Matt Paolo played well enough in the Four Nations that he would have a regular spot back there, and he has since the tournament ended. You kept JBD out all this time. Cleven's injured. So yeah, but I don't know if you do it first game. I don't know if it's tomorrow. I don't even know if Gilbert is he Canadian? Is he American? Actually they're coming to Canada, so there's no big deal. If you're coming, you have visa issues if you're going to the States, right? Norris will be able to play. Obviously, he's an American, but Gilbert, it doesn't matter coming to Canada. He'll be able to play right away. But I don't know that you put Gilbert in right away. It wouldn't surprise me if Hamonic stays in the lineup for another game, at least one more game, playing in that bottom pair with Matt and Paolo.
I think it wouldn't surprise anybody listening right now. Yeah, there's something about, I mean, maybe it's the fact that Staios briefly played with Hamonic. Maybe it's that Green has had him before in Vancouver. Maybe those ties are so strong. And you have Steve Staios, who in his season with Hamonic, he would have been right at the end where Hamonic is right now. And so maybe there's a level of empathy for a player that's skating off into the sunset right now and wanting him to go out on I'm not sure exactly, but there is something about Hamonic that they like that a lot of people do not see. And but at the same time, maybe, I'll be keen. I haven't heard Steve Staios address Gilbert yet, but if he's sort of talking about him as a throw-in, that's one thing. But if he's really talking him up, well, then he might want to show off his shiny new toy, as GMs sometimes want to do. So an interesting day for the Ottawa Senators, no question about it. And 12:30, they take on the New York Rangers. It'll be interesting to see if everybody's here in time for that or not. And we'll take a time out of the program. We'll address the schedule, some other things going on, and that Brad Marchand deal to the Florida Panthers. Yeesh. Man, the Panthers are going to be good. We'll talk about it coming after these words.
With Celebrite, enjoy effortless, customizable lighting for any event, holiday, or special moments. Our energy-efficient LEDs blend seamlessly into your home and are easily controlled through our app. No ladders, no hassle, just year-round brilliance.
Welcome back to the show. Before we move on, we should hear from the star of the day, GM Steve Staios of the Ottawa Senators, talking about the two big deals that went down today.
That trade in particular with Dylan Cozens coming changes the dynamic a little bit at the center ice position, compared to Josh, and also allows us to go and acquire Fabian Zetterlund. And so that was the plan and the process all along. If we were able to do it, excuse me, it wasn't like I was feeling like I needed to do anything with the group, but opportunity for me to help support the group. They've taken the step. Credit to the players, the coaches, like they've taken the step. And, we look at it as a staff, and the scouts did an amazing job of setting it up so where we had these opportunities to add to the group.
Just one last thing, Julian. Did you feel like you had to make this, like, playoff hockey's tough? And did you feel like you had to be a little harder to play against, and that's what you achieve with a guy like Cozens?
Well, because he's a big body. I mean, I think everybody's seen what he can do now as a player, and we're really excited about the upside as well. But he's a different player in that position. We're extremely excited about where he's at right now, and also within our environment, the potential of growth with him as well.
What was it that you saw though in Cozens that you preferred over Josh Norris?
Well, I think there's some factors on Cozens that we liked for sure. It's not like we don't like Josh Norris. Like Josh he's a great player and a great kid, and and you'll see he's a great teammate by the reaction of his players, and it's hard on me as well. But I still have a job to do to make sure that we can take steps with this group. But a bigger body down the middle of the ice with Dylan Cozens and the potential upside with him. Ultimately, it can't affect my decision, but it was really hard on me. Like, I love Josh Norris. I love him as a kid. I love him as a player. He's a great teammate, and so these are very difficult decisions. And sure, I take time to think about how it's going to affect the group, but in my position, I can't let that get in the way of trying to make our team better. That's really what it comes down to. But certainly we're going to miss Josh. He's like I said, he's a joy to be around. He's a great kid and a good hockey player. But again, we feel like if I let those emotions get in the way of making these decisions, I'm not doing my job.
Maybe without the emotions, but how much in your mind does like chemistry play a part in terms of a team dynamic and winning? Like obviously trading Josh.
For sure, team dynamic. Like it's not, but we're also bringing in a very high character, player in Dylan Cozens, and so it'll be different. But I'm sure it won't take long for the culture we're building here is exactly what you saw today. Our players care about each other. The manager cares about the players. The coaches, it's. You may have noticed it's different here, and that's something to be proud of. Makes these days and these decisions harder, but I'd rather have that type of emotion on these types of days because we know the bond that is being built here, and that comes with winning too. So today, I think, as hard as it is on some of these days with emotions, I think it's a great sign for our organization. And you see our captain and his teammates, they care about each other. And you can't win consistently in this league and get to where we want to get to without that.
So other Sens GM Steve Staios, and we're just talking off the air, Gregg, that he deserves some credit for, and maybe this comes from being a former player himself, for understanding that the players needed a little something headed toward the playoffs.
Yeah, I give him a lot of credit for that, Steve. This is a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 7 years. We know all the litany of the last while here and how bad it's been. And here's a team that's worked hard, gotten to a stage where they're close. Like, you're not going to go out and try to make 4 or 5 big deals to put you over the top and win a Stanley Cup, but reward the players. Show the players you have faith in them and thank them and appreciate the effort they put forward. Make a couple deals to help them and hopefully help them get into the playoffs. As I said, they're not expecting to win, but just to tell the players, I got your back, boys. You did your hard work. Here's some help for you down the stretch. I give Steve Staios a lot of credit.
A lot of people leading into the deadline were thinking about Anton Forsberg as being a possibility. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year, and some people thought that maybe he would be a guy that could move out because they do have a ready-made replacement, as everyone knows, down in the minors in Levi Merilainen. And the more I thought about that, the more I said, that's probably not going to happen. I know that they dealt a UFA last year at the deadline, but that was Tarasenko, and they were 18 points out of a playoff spot at the deadline, not in the playoffs as they are as we speak right now. But more than that, if Staios was willing to sacrifice goaltending depth and move on from Forsberg, then he would have done it a month ago when Merilainen was ripping it up.
Right.
To protect that goalie depth. He sent down the one guy he could send down without affecting that goalie depth. And the way this team has been as far as goalie injuries this year and in recent years, I can't say I blame him for hanging on to Forsberg because really nothing has changed here in the past month. There's still a bunch of hockey ahead, and you still need to, particularly with this group, protect that goalie depth.
And the other side of the coin too, Steve, is who's looking for a goalie, and is Anton Forsberg somebody they see as the answer? Like, to me, I think right. Anton Forsberg, when he's playing well, is better than Calvin Pickard. So if I'm the Edmonton Oilers, I would have been looking for a goalie. I don't know that I would trust Stuart Skinner, who's had an off year. Let's be nice about it and say it was an off year. I would think Edmonton was looking for a goalie. There's not many other teams that were looking for a goaltending help. Maybe Colorado's looking for somebody else to play behind the two Woods, Blackwood, and what's the other Wood? Anyway, they got two guys named something Wood there playing in Colorado. Maybe they're looking for another goalie, but I don't know that there was any kind of a market, not only for a goaltender, but specifically for what Ottawa's offering. He hasn't had a great year. He's up and down. I'm not a fan. So, and as you've alluded to, if you were going to move him, it should have been a while ago and not necessarily now. They'll probably just walk away from him in the summer, I would think.
Yeah. It's Blackwood and Wedgwood.
Thank you. The Wood brothers.
They've got wood. Yeah, they sure do. We should move on to some of these trades around the NHL. And Tampa Bay obviously beefed up earlier this week, giving up a couple of first-round draft picks in the process. They're all in. And the Florida Panthers, they're clearly all in as well. They acquired, and this is weird with Boston, they've given up their star goalie, one of the star goalies in Linus Ullmark, to a division rival. And once again, you're not worried that much about Ottawa, at least at the time of the deal. But the Florida Panthers, they're a Stanley Cup contender again, and even more so now because the Bruins just traded captain Brad Marchand to the Panthers. What did you think about about Boston doing business with the team that everybody thinks is going to win that division?
Well, not only that, they sent Carlo to Toronto. They're three big pieces. Right. Charlie Coyle to Colorado, but the other three big pieces they moved today all go to division rivals. Very strange. But if we're going to give credit to Steve Staios for recognizing that his team has put in the effort and needs some help and deserves a pat in the back, and so make some deals, I got to give some credit to Don Sweeney in Boston for realizing, you know what, we're really not that good. We're not really going to make the playoffs. Let's get what we can for these guys while we can. The Marchand one, though, that's a shocker. I mean, we heard rumblings the last couple of weeks or so that maybe he was going to move. They're working on a deal. They can't seem to get to agree on a contract extension. It's kind of sad that certain players belong with certain teams from start of career to end of career, and he was one of those guys. But if the Boston Bruins could trade Ray Bourque, then they can sure as hell trade Brad Marchand. But to Florida, imagine that line's going to be Bennett between Matthew Tkachuk and Brad Marchand. That's going to be their second line, Steve. I would not want to be on the ice against those three guys.
No, and that's my concern is that the Sens end up playing Florida in the first round. They, all this time the Sens fans have waited to get to the playoffs, and all of a sudden they run headlong into the Florida freaking Panthers in round one. That would not be great. But stranger things have happened. You never know. I guess the biggest deal of the day, other than Brad Marchand, would be the Stars acquiring Miko Rantanen from the Carolina Hurricanes. And that was an interesting one from the perspective of the way he played in Carolina, statistically anyway. I mean, I didn't watch every Carolina Hurricanes game, but he looked kind of ordinary in Carolina, which made me wonder if maybe, he needed to be, insulated a bit in Colorado. I've loved the guy. I mean, he's been a top 10 scorer for a long time now, but I was surprised to see that he was pretty average in Carolina. But heading to Dallas, what did you think of that deal?
Wow. I understand it. I understand. Rantanen didn't fit in Carolina due to system. The game they play is totally different. We've talked about Nate McKinnon looking like a horse as he gallops down the ice. Colorado's a team that plays off the rush with speed, with numbers. Carolina is not. Carolina's a team that stays above their check. Carolina's a team that dump and chase and cycle game, and that's not the way that Miko Rantanen plays the game. So he did not have the success that Carolina thought he would have, or that they hoped he would have, and he probably wasn't enjoying it, not scoring. Like, this guy's a top 10 or top 15 player in the world, probably. So I can understand him not being all that pleased being there and being slow to agree on a new contract. But wow, if I'm Carolina, you got absolutely smoked. Like, the players you gave up, and all you got to show for it is Logan Stankover's not a piece of crap, good hockey player, but Stankoven and 2 first-round draft picks, it's not helping you win a Stanley Cup this year, right? Like, you gave up sorry, how do I say it again? What's the guy's name? Neckash. Yeah, you gave up Neckash and Drury. Like, I can't see it. Carolina really got hosed in the last month, I think.
All right, we should wrap things up because we could be here all day talking about every single trade, but I want to look ahead to the schedule for the Ottawa Senators. So we're recording this on Friday on deadline day, and these next 4 games, I mean, come on. It's basically everybody. All 4 games are against other teams that are in this crazy Eastern Conference wild card dogfight. So it's going to be the New York Rangers on Saturday afternoon. Then you've got the Red Wings on Monday night. You got the Philadelphia Flyers on Tuesday night, and then the Boston Bruins on Thursday. I'm a little less worried about the Bruins for all the reasons you just mentioned. They just bailed on a bunch of guys right now. But, I mean, if you're ever going to have a 4-game slump, and the Sens have had, I think, 3 of those at least this year, this is not the time to do it. You can probably get away with going 500, but if you decide to go in a funk in these next 4 games, your season might be over.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's 8 points. I'm thinking the number's got to be 6. Got to get 6 points. You want to stay in the race. That's all there is to it. Like, they got really lucky. Was it 2 nights ago? Every single team in and around them lost in regulation. That doesn't happen very often. Like, all 5 of them basically lost in regulation all in the same night when the Sens were off. That doesn't happen very often. The 3-point game's going to kill you. So, okay, we get it. You can play a tight checking 1-goal playoff type game. We get it. Thank you very much. Can we get the offense going now? Can we win 1 by 2 or 3? Can we win 5-1 one day again? Can we get back into that? You've proved to us that you can play in a tight checking game. Wonderful. Now score some goals. Let's get going. And I think these 4 games, that's 8 points. It better be 6.
Well, the Norris effect will be interesting most of the time, and I do think the Sens, with the Zetterlund deal, are a better team today than they were yesterday. But there's also the shock to the system of losing Josh Norris, and you saw it in the Brady Tkachuk in a news conference earlier. I will be interested to see how that effect goes, because that was a very popular player. Most of the time when you have a team that's in a playoff chase and they make a deal to improve, there is no shock, really. It's usually because a young guy's been moved out, or a draft pick's been moved out. But in this case, the Sens are better, but they also lost a big name in that locker room. So it will be interesting to see the effect of that, if there's any at all. So with that, we shall call it a day, Gregg. I hope you enjoy your weekend. We're back on Monday with our next episode. And you got anything going on this weekend?
No, not a thing, Steve.
Okay.
It's an early game tomorrow. Yeah, it's an early game tomorrow, so that
Yep.
takes care of you Saturday. No, nothing happening. You up to anything?
Just be chopping this thing together and getting it up by tomorrow. And because it'll be obsolete in about 5 minutes. So I better get going and take care of that right now. Thanks so much for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. The website is sensnationhockey.com. Please check out the hockey news at thn.com/Ottawa for full coverage of the trade deadline and all things Ottawa Senators. Gregg, enjoy your evening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Good night, my friend.